Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor, link right here in the description. Bypass the Apple upcharge. Click on the link. These days, we don't know what Apple's going to be doing much longer. So bypass the Apple upcharge. Pay $2.99 a month. You can cancel at any time. This is the place for heat, information, conversation, consternation, celebration. 10 different channels plus the stage shows, including our draft channel, which I know a lot of you want to pivot to at this stage. You can check that out as well. It's Off the Floor. This is the Discord server. This is where you go to talk heat. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Includes Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down $5. You get $50 to play. Why else would you have been watching that game yesterday between the Heat and the Sixers at the end, if not for waiting for Tyler Hero to get his 5th rebound? This is why you play Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down 5. Get 50 to play. Legal in the state of Florida. Again, you can play up to 6 players together. Play across the sports spectrum. And again, you got to use that code FIVE. PrizePicks.com. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. Got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Let's set the stage for you here. This is not where any of us wanted the season to go, but perhaps it's where it was destined to be. The Miami Heat are playing for play-in positioning. That's where they're at. They're going to be in the play-in. It will be somewhere between 8 and 10. 8 is unlikely. More likely to be 9 and 10. That means likely a first play-in game against the Chicago Bulls next Wednesday. If the Miami Heat are ahead of the Chicago Bulls when the season ends, that game will be at home. If not, it will be on the road. If the Heat were to win that game, and again, we're assuming they're in the 9-10 and not getting to the 8, if they were to win that game, they would then play on Friday against the loser of the 7-8 game, which again appears to be at the moment between Orlando and Atlanta. So those are the stakes as the Miami Heat go into Chicago. They do not have the tiebreaker. They cannot get the tiebreaker. They've lost both games to the Bulls this season, one in early February, one in March, 2 different games. In both games, Josh Giddey hurt them. Matas Buzelis hurt them in one of the other games. The Bulls have traded Zach LaVine. They've actually played better since they did so, although not by a whole lot. And in the overall context of the plan, and then I'll get to Alex on this and what the keys to this particular game are, the overall context of this, the Miami Heat now have a net rating for the season after everything, after the Jimmy stuff, after Bam's slow start, after Tyler became an all-star and then slipped, after bringing in Wiggins and him getting hurt a lot, after finally putting Rozier and Jaquez on the back end of the bench, after playing Pelle Larsson, after giving Kel'el Ware opportunities, all the other things that have happened this year, the Miami Heat's net rating is exactly the same as it was when the season started, 0.0. They're a flat line. They're 16th in the league. It actually suggests that Eric Spoelstra has not coached the most out of this team this year because typically the Heat's record is better than their net rating, and this year it is worse than their net rating, 36 and 43. Typically they should be right now about 38 and 39 or 39 and 38. And we can point to some games this year that if they had won any of the 40 that they dropped with leads, or maybe the timeout game in Detroit, or maybe Jimmy not tanking his way out in a couple of games. There are a lot of things we could look at and say they should be over 500, should be positioned at least in the 7th spot right now. They're not. So, Alex, they play the Bulls, a team that is perpetually in the play-in lately. They're like the franchise you don't want to be, like right in the middle, not seemingly building towards much, kind of going sideways. Them and Atlanta have been those teams over the past couple of years. As you look at this Bulls team, before we get to some of the keys of this game, What are their strengths? Because it doesn't seem to be defense because they've given up like 110 in like 15 straight games.
Well, their strengths are that they have nothing to lose, right? And you mentioned like, the Bulls always being in the play, and as a Heat fan, right? Like, if you're a Heat fan, you can't say much. The Heat this is going to be the third straight year in the play, and now, and it's funny because all these teams that are constantly in the play in every year, not only the Heat and the Bulls, but also the Hawks and the Raptors to a different extent, have kind of all made like, major, like they're in different chapters now. Like stars have come and go. Like all those teams are kind of have changed, right? And yet still here we are, like 3 out of the 4 are going to be there. And with the Bulls specifically, you've got Josh Giddey kind of orchestrating everything as kind of playing the point guard role. You've got Kobe White, playing like Kobe White. You've got Buzelis, who I was a fan of pre-draft. Just because he's a big athletic wing who's skilled, right? He's been really nice. He, like you mentioned, he killed the Heat in that last game. Like Trey Jones killed the Heat in that last game too. He had like 13 points in the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly, in that last game. And they were just kind of getting all over they were getting whatever they wanted. They were getting paint touches over and over and over against that Heat in that last game. Specifically in the second half. And that was one of those games where they definitely could have won and their defense was just not up to par. And like, for all the jokes, that we can make about the Bulls and what this team is or isn't, it's definitely a team that can beat the Heat in a 1-game sample, especially when you factor in that the Heat lost both of those first playing games when Jimmy Butler was still on the roster. So,
well, no, one of them he was on the roster. I just want to clarify that because I looked it up. The first one he played. Well, no, he didn't play. Hold on. He was on the roster. That was February, a couple days before the trade.
No, I was talking about I was just saying like the play-in stuff, like Jimmy.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Not their matchups this year. Because I think what stood out in the second matchup was that the Bulls didn't have 4 of, even after making the Levine trade, the Bulls didn't have 4 of their regulars in the rotation. The Heat took a double-digit lead and still lost. Now, you mentioned the defense. Miami right now sits at 9th in the league in defensive rating. We said Eric Spoelstra will make a top 10 defense out of anything. That's pretty much what's played out here. They're 21st in the league in offense. So we're right back where we thought we'd be at the start of the year, even with all of the changes. But the Bulls don't really defend. I want to go through some of the roster and some of the changes. You mentioned Giddey. They picked him up for Caruso, who was one of their better defenders. That was a trade OKC made for now. Giddey wasn't particularly efficient as a first-round pick in OKC. He's been much more prolific in Chicago. Kobe White, without Levine there, has blossomed. He didn't play, or he's not playing tonight, I guess. Was that it? Or last night? But he's supposedly going to play in this game. And Vucevic, they had that core of Levine and DeRozan, who are both now in Sacramento. Vucevic was the third part, and he's still there. So I'll just give you a box. Right, exactly. But let me give you a box score. This is the Raptors game 3 games ago when they were playing most of their guys. They scored 137, but against a Raptors team that's tanking. The starting lineup there was Kobe White, Kevin Huerter, who came over in the Levine deal. That's somebody who was almost part of a deal the Heat were involved in this offseason. Shooter, Buzelis, Giddey, and Vucevic. That was the starting lineup. And in that particular game against the Raptors, they got 28 from White, 22, 10, and 7 from Vucevic, who can kind of be a mini Jokic if used correctly in spurts. Giddey had 17, 7, and 12. Buzelis had 9 points. He's hurt the Heat. He had 24 in a game against the Heat earlier this year. Herter had 16 on 7 of 9 shooting. And then they got production from Talen Horton-Tucker. I remember him from the Lakers or Utah. Patrick Williams, who's kind of been a busted first-round pick. Zach Collins, Jameer Young. I mean, so this is not a loaded roster by any means. Let's assume, and we don't really have that information yet. Let's assume that Duncan's available tomorrow. He played in the last game. He played well. Looks like he's back to full health at least, or for now. Do you want to assume Wiggins is playing or not? I haven't heard. I mean, Jovic, I'm assuming no. So I haven't heard anything on Wiggins to this point. Seems like he's still questionable. Does he make a huge difference in this game if he plays? I don't see a wing that you're that concerned about, or am I wrong on that?
Well, I think just for the Heat in general, you take whoever you can get, especially when it's somebody who's averaged 20 for you, right? And I think is obviously like a two-way player. I think you definitely hope he returns. And he had that media session a few days ago where he was kind of talking about how he thinks he's going to return soon. He got upgraded to questionable a couple of days ago. And it made sense to not really play against the Sixers, to be honest. Like, that's just not even a real team that they're fielding out there. No disrespect. It's just not. Like, they're playing a whole bunch of guys who wouldn't be playing if their main guys were healthy. Just to be frank, most of them are in that category for the Sixers. So, like, I understand why Wiggins wouldn't want to rush back for that game. This game is, much more important if you care about the standings and all that. And maybe he doesn't come back and he's more just worried about getting back to 100% for the play-in/playoffs, right? But you gotta hope he comes back. But like, you're gonna have Bam and Hero back. I mean, Hero's already back, but you know, um, you're gonna have those guys, and that's enough. You've got enough. Like, just not to get on my spoism here, but even without Wiggins, they should have enough to beat that team if you just don't let them like run all over the paint against you. And I think you continue to see Duncan off the bench. I think you continue to see Burke starting. Like Brady mentioned last night, we were talking about it on Media Row. Like, he's just such a nice fit with what Tyler does, and you can still get a lot out of Duncan off the bench. So I like what they're doing there. With Bam back, we're gonna see Ware versus Vucevic, and then probably Bam on somebody else. Like, I think they've got more than enough
Mhm.
to win this game here.
I think you could see if that's how it lines up. I think you could see Bam out on the perimeter on Giddy also try to get the ball out of his hands, force him to make some bad
And
decisions
you can help
if
off
they
of him
go.
and recover.
You can
I
now.
like that.
Vucevic is a bigger guy, but he doesn't play quite the same way that Zubats does, or some of the others who've really hurt Ware
Honestly, if
this
they
year.
want to, he can definitely like take advantage of Ware in the post. But if that's what you
Mhm.
want to like,
Right.
if you want to just go to that every time, I think the Heat will take that. I think they can probably
Mhm.
go and help down and recover, and they'll probably take that as opposed to somebody like White or Giddy or Buzelis like getting paint touches over and over.
I can see that. Now, Vucevic has had this. Of course, he was a heat killer in Orlando, and then he's drifted to the perimeter more and more of a playmaker under Billy Donovan. Again, they looked to. I mean, they were interested in moving him. Golden State was interested in acquiring. It didn't happen. I guess here would be my question, and then I want to get into how you handle the rest of the season after this, depending on how things go. Um, Davion Mitchell's not starting, but he's playing 37 minutes. Like, he's playing 35 plus minutes a night. They were. I know you hate the single game plus minus, but when it stands out like this, they were plus 27 in the 35 minutes he played against Philly, and they were minus. What were they? They were something significant. In another 13 minutes, they were minus 15. Okay,
It's funny
like
you say
his.
that because Duncan and Kyle also had like similar things where you look at their single game on
Mhm.
off for last night, and it was crazy. And I think it just
Right, the
kind of fits
split,
into like that theme that you're talking about here.
well, they were out there together. So I'll ask you this: would you even
Exactly.
consider, if this is a pseudo play-in game, pseudo playoff game, would you consider putting Davion in the starting lineup so that Kobe White doesn't get going? Because otherwise,
Hmm.
who's guarding him? Burks, which is a little problematic.
No,
If you're not
I put
starting Highsmith, or
I put
Wiggins,
Pella.
I guess.
Pella or Wiggins,
Okay,
whoever starts, that's
whoever
probably what I
starts
would
of the
do.
three.
But we know that
Okay.
Spo is willing to throw Hero into the fire there. Of course, like, it's one thing to have him as a primary matchup, and another thing to leave him on an island. So that like they'll help when they need to if they end up putting Hero there. I think it's maybe more likely that it's Larson. If Wiggins doesn't play, and Wiggins if he does. But like, outside of that, I think Davion has been so good off the bench. Like, he gives them a different energy every time, and I feel like Spo always mentions that. Like, they've got what they can go to with the starting lineup, right? And then it's like a nice change of pace when he comes in and he ends up playing starters minutes, right? And then I think Duncan is kind of more or less in that same category, where it's like what he's going to give you. he's not going to play quite as many minutes Davion has been playing, where like the guy is closing fourth quarters, and playing most of the fourth quarters and all that. But like I think they found something there where like Mitchell and Mitchell and Duncan off the bench have been a godsend for them. And I think to a lesser extent, Kyle Anderson and what you get out of Haywood, like they've got, something there with the rotation. I like how that's trending.
Yeah, and they can't afford the negative minutes they've gotten from Jaime and Terry. So it's continuing to lean into these guys. So as a closing line, let's say the game is tight. We saw the Heat blow the game last time at the end after having a big lead. Would you say, and I guess some of this is matchup dependent, who's playing well, would you say the most likely scenario here, if I was to throw out this closing lineup against this particular team, assuming Chicago goes small at the end, which they tend to do, most teams tend to do, you've got Bam, you've got Tyler. To me, Davion closes. So you've got Bam, you've got Tyler, you've got Davion. You have Wiggins if he's healthy. Is Ware the fifth?
Oh.
If they go small, if they have Vooch, if they're playing like Giddey is like a small ball 4, which is kind of how they look sometimes. Or they're playing with Buzelis, they've been playing a couple of extra guards. Herter, right. If they're playing, I mean, you can go after Herter defensively. I just don't know if he'd have the person to do it.
I think you go Bam on Buzelis, Ware on Vucevic. And you go Davion, Tyler, Wiggins.
Okay.
If Wiggins doesn't play, I think that becomes kind of like a, what style do you want? Who's playing better? Like, do you want another shooter in there? Do you want another guy like a role player in there, like Pella, who's just going to do his job and play defense? It becomes like an X factor. But I think Wiggins is probably a lock as long as he's not having like some sort of terrible game. I mean, he's been good when he plays. So
I think if Wiggins doesn't play, that'll be Highsmith. I could see Spo leaning into a guy he trusts in that situation. Feels like
honestly, whoever's playing better between him or Pella.
Right. Now, I could see that. But I just think at this point, I think Haywood has more likelihood of not committing the cheap foul or the one that the official notices late in the game. And, I mean, you could be coming down to a point or two. I mean, I'm curious to see how the crowd is in this game because Chicago's been such a weird basketball market pretty much since Rose got hurt, where it's like they just never they've just been in this non-competitive cycle in a city that demands or expected championships for a long time. And had a very and they do sell out. I give them credit for that. But I've been in that building many times and it turns. It's not they don't turn against them quite the way that like Philly does or some of those, but they kind of lose interest. And the weather will be better up there than it would be if it was in January. So it won't be late arriving. They should. And traffic's horrible in Chicago, but typically, as long as the weather's good, they make it on time. They're there. They're loud. They're kind of on top of you. I like that building. It's one of my 5 favorite buildings. It's just you feel the energy in that building because of everything that's happened there. But nothing's happened there in the past 10 years. And so,
by the way,
I'm curious to see how seriously they take this game.
Sneaky closer. If Ware is not having a great game. Kyle Anderson.
It's Kyle Anderson. Yeah, I can see that.
If he's not playing great defense or getting killed in pick and roll or something, I could 100% see that. I
agree with you. I would love to see Kel'el Ware earn those minutes. I think that is we look for progression. This is not the kind of big games that he's going to be playing in the future. Hopefully, okay. There will be
as long as you don't leave him on an island against all-star point guards.
Well, and then he gets called
with no help.
Anyway. And right, exactly. All right, on the other side of this, we'll talk about how you handle the season here, win or lose after this. Before we do, I want to mention our friends over at Cousins Moving.
And now it's time for Who's on the Move, sponsored by our friends over at Cousins USA Moving and Storage, family owned and operated since 1996. They can service both residential and commercial moves, whether you're going across town, across the state, across country, and even across the globe. They have a 15,000 square foot private warehouse in Lauderhill, Broward County. The number one priority for Cousins Moving is transparency and being honest with their customers. They have a very low turnover, with most of their movers working for them for over 10 years. So find them online at Cousins Moving on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or visit the website at www.cousinsusa.com/5RSN. They've got an exclusive offer through 5RSN. You get 5 free wardrobe boxes with your next move, so there's no need to pack your clothes away in suitcases. Just mention 5 reasons. And now, who's on the move?
Well, Mike Malone's on the move, by the way. Just your jet before we close here, because I did this with Alex Dono today. Uh, your general thoughts about a coach who the Heat just lost the finals to? What is it, like less than 2 years ago?
Mhm.
Being fired. I always heard that he and Calvin Booth didn't get along great, but I mean, the results are the results. I can't imagine you make this move unless Jokic knows about it. That would be rather stupid. What did you think of this? Because he's going to get hired. I mean, I know he's a difficult personality. He has that reputation, but he's going to get hired somewhere.
For sure, he's gonna get hired. Like it's just like the Taylor Jenkins firing on steroids. Like that was shocking in itself. That was weird timing. This is so much more. Like you mentioned, not only they won a championship, but they've been like a playoff staple, since Jokic and Murray have been together with Malone, and they've kind of, when they're healthy, that team is always there. So it's very like it seemed like one of the more stable situations, just like from the outside looking in, right? If you're not paying attention, on a daily basis to what's going on and what's being said and the rumors and things like that, like from the outside, it just looks like, hey, the Nuggets are the Nuggets. They're going to be back in the mix again in the playoffs. 100%, it's weird. Like you mentioned, it seems like there's been some stuff brewing there, but I just don't understand the timing. Same thing as Jenkins. Like, why would you fire your veteran coach right before? Like, just be professional and try to play through it. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are there to play basketball. Like at the end of the day, right? Like, I think you try to work out like the rest of the season, unless it's just like an untenable situation where, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just no way that you can, do it in good faith. I just think you tough it out and you try to have a good end of the season. What do I know, right? Like, I've never been in that situation. I'm just saying, like, that's my opinion on it is why do this right now with 3 games left in the season? Why? Like, what you're just putting everybody in a tough position. You've had everybody go through this entire regular season, and now, like, to some extent, things are going to be different, right? And you've got to do this whole change right as you're supposed to lock in. Like, it just seems
Well,
like
you're trying to lock in a 4 seed. You're trying to lock in a 4 seed right now. Like they could drop as far as 8 or 9. You look at the teams in the West, considering that they all have these positive records, like there's been so much turmoil there. Memphis fires the coach, Denver fires the coach, Dallas trades Luka. Okay, they're still in the mix. Phoenix, obviously, the bottom has fallen out. The Lakers got Luka, and nobody's going to complain about that. The Clippers have had Kawhi in and out the entire season, and Golden State got Jimmy and has been
Kawhi looks
integrating
good, by the
him.
way. Watch out for the Clippers.
I would worry about them, and that's the thing. If you're Denver and the Clippers in that matchup, I think if now you're looking at the team that Golden State didn't want to play was Denver. They've lost like 11 straight to them, but they're not lined up against them right now. But I guess they could be at some point. It's just the whole thing, the way it's played out. There has to be more behind the scenes. He's a difficult
You
character.
didn't even mention Fox and the Kings, by the way.
Well, right. I mean, the Kings trade Fox, right, and now they're starting to play better again. They've got a little bit of a surge. They've had a weird season. This stat is amazing, though, and then I'll get to what my question was. We'll close, but Tim Rattles posted this up. Since the pandemic, only 3 teams in the NBA have not changed coaches. 3. San Antonio, which doesn't even have its coach right now because Pop's on a sabbatical for health. Kerr, Spoelstra. And the teams with Kerr and Spoelstra executed the biggest trade of the year. It's just a weird dynamic. And by the way, Golden State fans want Kerr out. They have for a long time. Although the loud minority on Twitter, which is like the loud minority on Twitter, that was putting it out there today that somehow Denver was showing they want to win and the Heat shouldn't have done that. So I guess the parallel was the Heat should have fired Spo and Andy today, 3 games before the end of the regular season, which is patently ludicrous. But again, this is where we're at with some on social media. We could get a lot of content out of it. That's true. That's accurate. Not sure that's the content we want. All right, let me ask you this question. Okay. There are 2 different outcomes here to this game. If you win this game, the Bulls play tonight, right? Am I wrong on this? Hold on. They're 36-42. I believe they do play tonight. Hold on. Okay. So let's say the Bulls, and who are they playing? Or are you just guessing? Hold on.
No, I was saying yes to the record, not to them.
Okay. They're playing Cleveland tonight.
Okay.
But Cleveland's not playing anybody. But Kobe White's supposedly not playing. So I guess they've made a calculation that it really doesn't matter if they win this game or not, because as long as they beat Miami, Now, the way this lines up is Orlando. By the way, the Heat have the best net rating of these 4 teams. These are not great teams. Orlando, which won 7 of 10, is a game up on the Hawks for 7, who are a game up on the Bulls for 8, who are a game or half a game up on the Heat for 9. So let's do 2 different outcomes here. Let's say the Bulls win tonight, which gets them closer to the 8, puts them a game ahead of Heat without, and plus they will have the tiebreaker even if the Heat win tonight. So if the Bulls win tonight, the best the Heat can do is tie the Bulls tomorrow, but they will not have the tiebreaker. Yeah. Okay. And then you're looking at the Bulls' last 2 games. So it's possible if they, in that scenario, that's why that game matters tonight. In that scenario, I think they close with who? They close with Philadelphia. That's an easy win for the Bulls, and the Wizards. Okay, so they're winning their last 2. So I'll ask you this question. If the Bulls win tonight, even if the Heat win tomorrow, which just pulls them into a tie for 9, but they won't have the tiebreaker. I guess they conceivably could catch Atlanta, but it's not going to be easy, or Atlanta drops down. Would you just shut everybody down for the last 2? Because, I mean, the last 2 are against New Orleans and Washington. I could assume you can win without Bam or Tyler. Both of them, I would hope. Would you just shut it down? If you can't, if beating the Bulls tomorrow doesn't put you in the 9 position?
Honestly, I think you do.
Yeah.
I think you do. Like, what are you doing at this point? You know what I mean? Like, if you have, yeah, they win tonight, they go up a game, and that's it, right? Like, unless they lose out or something, like, I think either way, like, you're at that point, if I'm the Heat, I'd probably shut everybody down. You can't even get home court in that game anymore.
No, but right. But I'm saying if the Bulls win tonight, I still play my guys tomorrow. I do, to try to win the game. I think you do try to win the game. Wow. I'm just saying that if you lose the game, you shut everybody down. That's it. I mean, that's it. You're the 10. You just suck it up. You deal with it. You get everybody healthy.
But you just laid out that if you win that game, if the Bulls win tonight and if you win that game tomorrow, it doesn't do anything.
You're not guaranteed anything unless you win twice and the Bulls lose twice, and the Bulls are playing two horrible teams. So really, do we just do a 27-minute episode on the game that really doesn't ultimately matter if the Bulls win tonight, right? And Cleveland's not playing. Cleveland's not playing anybody.
Oh man. Oh boy. Yeah,
I should pull this on off the floor. If the Bulls win tonight to go up a game plus the tiebreaker with 2 easy games left, if you're the Heat, do you just shut it down now? Shut it down. It's not their way, but
I would shut down guys who are going through any sort of injuries, like just anything that's bugging them. Like if they're good to play, whatever, and maybe just don't play them their full amount, like, cut it short or whatever. But just in general, if whoever's dealing with something, you're out. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is the time. Honestly, like we haven't seen much of the two-way guys at all. Like, and that's something that Spo usually does throughout regular seasons. So if you have nothing to play for anymore, like let's just see 3 games of those guys. You know what I mean? And get a better feel for them and see who you're going to bring back next season, because that's part of your, off season too.
I wish they'd done that sooner. I think that's going to be something they regret. But they may already have a read on these guys. I don't know. It seems like Keshad Johnson, they have a read on. They just don't have a role right now.
Yeah, but too bad. Every time he gets on there for garbage time, Josh Christopher is like taking all 3 shots that they got up.
Josh Christopher took some shot yesterday that Terry Rozier would have been embarrassed about and walked off the court in shame. Anyway, Alex, appreciate it. We're going to cover this game that we don't know if it's meaningful or not. I guess maybe we should have some of the guys on playback tonight to watch this Bulls game, because that feels like it's more important than this. I wish I had looked at the standings before we just spent 29 minutes on this. But thank you. Use the code 5 at Prize Picks. Go to cousinsusa.com/5RSN. We'll have more tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.